It's such a pleasure to have you both, John and Ariane, here to chat with me. I have had a break from actually doing podcast guests. And funny, since I've had this break, I've have been reached out by you and a couple of other people who are really keen to share their story with me and through my channels. So it's absolute honor to have you both here. Thank you so much.
The honor is ours.
Well, I don't usually interview two people at once. So, what I was actually thinking might be really lovely. Obviously, you both, I know a little bit about your story. You've not just lived together as husband and wife, but you've worked together and you've obviously been very intimately involved. So, what I thought might be fun is, Ariane, would you like to introduce a little bit about John? And John, maybe you could introduce Ariane and just from your perspective, just share a little bit about who you are.
Well, John is probably one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. Really a perfectionist and a great athlete and a fantastic friend and a super husband. And I don't think that I could really introduce him any better than that. I mean, there's not much that's missing, let's put it that way.
Oh, actually, the one thing I would draw on that is that you said friendship. I think
Yes,
it's
yes.
often
Yeah,
missing, isn't it?
that is really probably the cornerstone of our relationship is that we really met at work and became really good friends and with no intention ever of being in a relationship. I mean, you have to understand that he was 27 years old, I was 38 and the mother of two. So,
Wow.
uh, it was not something that even crossed my mind, not even for 5 seconds at any point in time. It crossed his, but not mine.
Funny that.
Yeah, so that's
And for me to introduce my wife, Arienne, when I met her at one of the hospitals I was working at up in Northern Ontario, Canada, she was interesting. She was running a department, a dental department, and the thing about her was we would come down for a break. There'd be a whack of nurses, psychologists, social workers, etc. Usually be at a big table, and there'd probably be 14 of us. And she never agreed with the thing I said, I swear, for a year. And that was a very interesting thing. I loved it. And she would challenge me, and she had some pretty good, she's the most common sense person I'd met in my life. Just unbelievable. And then I used to run with a group of social workers and physicians at lunchtime. One of them did Arian started up a fitness class to try and make the staff healthier and,
I did a lunchroom,
the
a
lunch.
lunchtime fitness
Yeah.
class.
So one of the guys in our running group said, I went to this lady's fitness class and I couldn't finish it. And back in the 80s, men just they didn't really do that sort of thing. So we all sort of poo-pooed his thought, and he challenged us all $1 to try and finish her class. So we had to go. None of us finished her class, not a single one.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but the comments, Arian has the most compassion. She's the most honest person, so emotional. And she can make me cry in 2 seconds So we
Mhm.
love the same things. We're always together. We're kind of a strange couple because we like being together. And
Mhm.
other friends try and say, well, why don't you guys take separate vacations, or why don't you go here with the guy? We we really have no desire to do that. But
We really have
anyway,
never done that.
but she's very
Mhm.
talented, and she ran my uh, when I was up north, when I met her, I worked in Emerge as a trauma ER doc, covered one of the hospitals, and I did a family practice with a 63-year-old, splitting his practice. When I went back to do eye surgery and did a residency in ophthalmology. She ran my practice for almost 3 decades, and without her, I mean, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, it sounds like you both were destined to be together. It was going to happen.
like I used to have to, because we work together all the time, and our patients used to ask all the time, how can you guys do this, be together 24/7? I said, well, if I didn't work with him, I just wouldn't see him. I mean, he's always either in the hospital or in the office. If I wasn't in the office working with him,
Yeah.
every once in a while I sneak him out of his schedule for 10 minutes to have a coffee with me. And we really didn't see each other all that much all day long, because I was just putting the patients in for him to see, and he was seeing them, and then I would be processing them. And so, I mean, it just, I really didn't want to be at home or be working someplace else. It just didn't make sense. Plus, I wanted all of our time off to be the two of us at the same time being off, which is not something that you can always have when you're working. If you're working two different jobs,
Yeah.
you can't always coordinate your vacation time.
Mm.
And that was really important for me, that we could spend time together traveling and spending time with the kids and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Wow, it sounds like there's many ingredients in there, and we could probably talk a long time about relationships. And actually, it is so important for health. It comes into a lot of my coaching because I think relationships aren't easy. And a lot of people, don't really know how to, I suppose, make them work. And obviously you guys have done that, and it won't be for everybody the way you've done it, but the way you guys have done it, I think that's people have sort of said, well, why do you do it this way? Why don't you do it this way? Because this is the way I do it. But you've resisted that and just really stayed true to both of you, which is really, to me, what the essence is of a good relationship, being true to what both of you need. So congratulations, because I think
Thank you.
it is rare. And I know there'll probably be people who want me to get you back and we just do a whole thing on relationships. But I do want to ask you, because there's a book in the background there called Ketogenic. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the book. Those of you listening, many of you will know of the Nutrition Network textbook, Ketogenic, that is in the background. So that's going to spark my next question. I guess, what's led you to have a ketogenic textbook in the background, and what is the story or stories?
Well, in
you wanna share?
2019, my oldest son, who's 53 years old, came down to visit us, and he said to me, he said, Mom, he said, you should read Jason Fung's book on fasting and on the cancer code and the diabetes code and blah, blah, blah. So we kind of thought about it, like we talked to each other about it, and we decided to buy the books.
Oh, really?
And
There wasn't an element of, oh, nope.
no, not at all. Not at all. He said to me, he
No.
said, Mom, you had cancer, and I think you need to read that because there's a lot of information in there that I think might help you, And who knows, I could have, I had a recurrence apparently once, and I could have had another one. So that's what took John down the whole of nutrition, reading those books, and then getting into the Nutrition Network with Professor Noakes, and starting the coaching there. And then from there, my son became carnivore.
What?
100% carnivore. He started keto.
Yeah.
And did quite well on that. And then he gradually just started to, well, he transformed himself. He really got really strong, and he started running, and he started weightlifting.
50 pounds.
Yeah, I think he lost 40 to 50
yeah.
pounds. And anyway, he just transformed himself. And so we started playing around with the ketogenic diet. And then I really liked it because I'd been vegetarian for 15 years. We had been vegetarian for 15 years and until 2010, and I blame the pesticides on the fact that I got lymphoma.
Yeah.
And there's no question. I mean, it's out there now on Facebook every day, watch the Roundup and the pesticides and so forth. And I did my best to get ingredients that wouldn't have that on it, but just because you buy organic doesn't mean that it hasn't been oversprayed from a field next door or whatever. So so when I started looking into all this, and we went to the first conference, we had already been keto probably for 3 to 4 years. I have to say that we fell off the wagon quite a few times during Christmas, during birthdays, during Easter, all the holidays, Thanksgiving and so forth. But then I went to Boca. And just before Boca, I decided that I was going to get all of my food ready for the 4 days, and I was going to take it with me to the hotel. And I did that. And I made meatballs and roast beef and hard-boiled eggs and cheese and water. And we ate that while we were at the meeting. I think we had 2 dinners out, and we just had one night, I think we had a steak, and one night we had a burger. And by the time I was finished the 4 days and the day traveling back home, it just absolutely transformed my life. I was so concerned about, I said to Georgia Eid, she said to me, I met her in Clearwater, and she said, "What led you to to buy my book?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be 80 next year, and I wanted to make sure that my marbles are still rolling the right way by the time I get there. I'm concerned. I'm not afraid of having a heart attack. I'm not afraid of having anything. I don't have any pain anywhere. I don't take any medication except for thyroid medication." I said to her, "I just am afraid to lose my mind. I'm much more concerned about losing my mind than I am of having a heart attack." Because if you don't know where you are, and if you can't recognize your relatives and all that, to me, there can't be anything more devastating. So on my way home from Boca, I realized that I've never felt better. And for the first time in my life, I realized that I had been in a fog from having COVID twice, maybe 3 times.
Wow.
And probably was very depressed over the period of time that we had the COVID pandemic. And I was still in this kind of half fog. And I
were you
got home.
keto then? Can I just ask? Were you still
Yes.
ketogenic? So this is the difference between ketogenic and carnivore.
Yes,
Yes.
I really
Wow.
eliminated, first of all, I eliminated all fruit because sugar really feeds the lymph nodes that they swell right up when I have sugar. So I stopped eating all fruit, and then I was still eating vegetables. But before I went to Boca, I used up everything I had in the house, and that was it. I didn't buy anything more. And just on being those 4 days and 2 travel days on nothing but a carnivore diet, I've never felt better in my life. I was stronger, and I was happier, and I was clearer than I've been in months, years. And so I said to John, "Well, you know what? The proof is in the pudding. I don't expect anybody else to do what I'm doing, but for me, this is the answer." Absolutely.
She's always been a warm, cuddly teddy bear. However, no, yeah, it was so, for me to see her mood just go to that extra level and not be sad. With COVID lockdowns, you can't see your grandchildren, your
Oh yeah,
children.
was
That
killer.
was
That was
very
killer.
difficult for everyone. But she just lifted her with this going mostly carnivore.
Plus, I had run a few half marathons and a couple of long runs in my 50s.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wanting to clarify.
Yeah.
And so I think I did my first half marathon when I was 56.
Yeah.
And so I did a few of those and a few fundraising runs in Hawaii. I did one for the Lung Association. I did a couple here for St. Patrick's Day in Florida. Anyway, I all of a sudden couldn't do it anymore. I tried to run on the treadmill, and I just got a sore left hip, and it was just bothering me. And it would bother me playing pickleball. It would bother me biking. It would bother me walking. It would bother me running. And I came back from Boca, and I had no pain. I had no hip pain at all. So I'm thinking that diet for me was very anti-inflammatory.
What did you start doing, honey?
I started running.
And
I'm set.
When was this? Was this last year or this year?
This is this year. This year.
This year since Boca, since January 11th.
Wow.
January
Wow.
11th.
And just to clarify, everybody, that you're 79.
Yeah, January 11th, we were traveling down to Boca for TD1. And actually what happened was we weren't gonna take the first day, we were just gonna go for diabetes 2 and the rest of the conference. And then John said to me, he says, you know, I think that the diabetes 1 is going to be interesting. And I said, well, then let's go early. So then we phoned the hotel and they said didn't have a room. And I said, yeah, well, he went on the website. He said, they have no room, And I said, well, phone the hotel, talk to somebody in the hotel and tell them what the situation is and you'll get a room. We got a room. So we went for day 1, which was excellent.
That's great.
And, but I also wanted to go because there was lots of subjects that I was interested in. So, but on my way home, I stuck to my plan of not having anything that I shouldn't have. And when I got home, I went for my first walk run. And I said to John, I said, I can run and I have no pain. And I said to him, I said, I don't know how this could happen, but it happened.
Amazing.
So I said to him, I said, well, you know, it doesn't really matter what people think, and it doesn't matter whether they tell me that I'm going to have a heart attack and drop dead, because they do
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know what? I'm 79 years old. If I drop dead, it's all good. I've outlived my father. And if I live another 5 years, I'll live my mother. So, and my mother wasn't doing dead hangs, and she wasn't doing pull-ups, and she wasn't doing weight training, and she wasn't doing running. So I'm okay.
There is so much in that is incredibly inspiring. And one thing I want to draw back on is the fact that you've really highlighted the importance of mental health, because I think it's, you know, I love Georgia. I've done her training as well. And, you know, I've got her book. I think she's phenomenal. And what she brings is,
yeah,
she brings this element of, this is actually the pinnacle in some ways, because we're so concerned with heart attacks and our physical health, yes, but what's good for the brain is good for the body. So if we focus on keeping our brain optimal and working well and showing up for us, that's just going to filter through to our body anyway. And I do think people they're so focused on, and I get it, but you know, so many in my world, they're focused on the weight. I know you've had cancer, and we can go into that a little bit as well, but was it the weight at all for you, or was it just purely the health and the mental health reasons?
No, the mental health was #1 issue for me, really.
Yeah.
And there was a time when I was weighing 20 pounds more than now, but that was during my cancer treatment.
Right.
And I was on very high doses of prednisone.
Mhm.
So I look at the pictures that John took while I was hiking, bald and taking chemo, and I was hiking and going up a hill, and I look like the Pillsbury Doughboy. I mean, it's just boom, boom, boom. Like, I mean, it's just tires from top to bottom. Which is interesting because at the time it didn't bother me at all. I didn't care. It was hot, and I pulled my wig off my head and went hiking with a bald head. And actually, I had a lady come up to me and she said, "Are you a cancer patient?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Well, me too." And then we had a conversation, you know, and I said, "Well, I was just too hot wearing a wig." And she said, "So where is it?" And I said, "It's in my backpack." So for me, it was definitely mental, more than weight loss. Now I'm 20 pounds lighter than I was then.
Yeah, the side effect.
But that was also 10 years ago, or 13 years ago, I got actually. So, and we're biking all the time. I'm not skinny. I never will be skinny. I weigh more than John. So that's why he can hang for such a long time, because
he's lighter.
You want to put a 10-pound weight around his neck, because I think that will make the difference. Because I think
put a weighted vest on him.
Yeah, we have one. I've been thinking about that. I'm thinking the only way he's going to know what it's like for me is if I put a 10-pound weight in there, and he has to hang that on that, hang on that too. So anyway, but no, you're right. For me, certainly, maybe not 4 years ago, it wasn't the priority. Maybe then I was thinking more about losing weight. And my son said to me, he said, "You're going to have to really water fast to get weight off," because I was very incapable of losing weight. But since I've been to Boca and learned so much, what I found out is I'm very insulin resistant.
Yeah.
So And so I got all the blood work done. John got the panel done for me here. And so that is what motivated me to really stick with the carnivore, because it's really helping my insulin going down. And I was like 6.0 in my sugars, and I was considered pre-diabetic, I guess, and that's down to 5.6,
Mhm.
5.6 now. So just since January. So
Like her fasting insulin was close to 30. Now it's down to just 8, and it's not, it keeps going down all the time, which is
Did you say
wonderful.
8?
8, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Fasting
now, so
insulin was 30.
now, yeah. So the reason was, if people are on, if they have any kind of inflammatory autoimmune disease, first thing we often give them is massive dose of steroids. And other
I
than
had
biologic agents, but so she was on, because of some complications she had with one of her chemotherapy agents. She was on 100 milligrams of prednisone for over a year.
Oh, wow.
So it's like being a lion jumping up in front of you. You get a, stress response, your cortisol goes through the roof. Well, hers is way above that for over a year. That makes you severely, severely insulin resistant. And that's why it's been a lot more of a challenge for Arienne to improve that, but she's really doing well. Carnivore's helped her tremendously.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you're talking
Yeah.
to the converted for me. So I've been carnivore for about 3 years after Hashimoto's. So I,
There you go. Yeah.
See, I have
pre-diabetes.
Yes.
I have
Yes.
hypothyroid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep. And
mhm.
it's really, I mean, I don't have it anymore.
That's awesome.
Everything's, I'm not on any medication or anything. I think I was lucky enough to find out what I did early enough. But what I find really fascinating is the difference between, the spectrum. How for some
Yes.
people, just caking out, crappy processed foods and focusing on real food can be enough to get their metabolic health to where they want to be. For others, it's ketogenic. But for you to see such a difference between ketogenic and carnivore, because I was the same. And I know I've read that certainly when you were vegetarian or largely vegan, there was a lot of green oxalates and kales and juices because, hey, we think they're healthy, right?
Mhm.
But see,
Yeah.
for me, when I went keto, because I have a family and I ketofied everything, so I did a lot of almond meal baking, and now I look at it and think, oh my gosh, all the oxalates and the high omega 6 in the almonds, but it's a process and a journey, and we learn along the way. But I do see, and I've seen it in many of my clients too. You think it's not much, just cutting out a bit of veg or a bit of fruit, but actually to the body, that little difference can make a massive difference.
Mhm.
Huge.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah, and I was guilty of the same thing. I mean, when I first went keto, I was doing really well on it, but then I found out about almond flour and coconut flour, and you could bake this and you could
Yeah.
bake that, and it just really pollutes the diet. I mean, it
Yeah,
just
I
doesn't
like that,
work out
pollutes.
long term.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
does. It pollutes the diet. And even though I rarely ever bought anything processed, even before I ever became vegetarian, mostly we bought fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, and I tried to use grains instead of meat, but it just doesn't work. The only way, well, the only thing that worked for me was going carnivore. I mean, that was really the answer to any, like I after running, I would have a sore knee. Now I run, I don't have a sore knee. So yesterday we cycled, well, we went in the bush and we were mountain biking the day
my
before.
gosh.
Yeah.
So this is Wednesday. So
On the tandem. We're always on the tandem.
Monday we
That's
were
awesome.
on the tandem in the
Yeah.
bush mountain
Yeah.
biking. And then yesterday we were on a paved trail with a group of people and we cycled
64K.
64
40
No
kilometers.
way. That's
And
amazing.
I mean, and I love it. I mean,
Of
I'm
course.
so happy to be able to do it. And
Yeah.
I see people around me and they have straps on their knees and they have stuff on their ankles and
Yes, and they're much younger than you too. You know, I see it, people in their
and I
40s
go,
like that.
I go to go pickleball playing and they've got elbow things and wrist things and knee things and my goodness. And
But the other thing you show with your story too is it's not too late. Like, look at the difference that you at 79, you know,
Yes.
with the change in diet has made, you know, like
Yes.
I think there, you know, I do think there are foundation pieces. Like it sounds like, you know, you've always had a really growth mindset. You've always had that positivity and, you know, you've always worked hard for things. So for, you know, for someone like yourself, I think when you make a tiny change, I take tiny, but, you know, you change your diet a little bit, you get leaps and bounds in terms of reward. And I think, you know, what I'd love people to really be inspired by with you is that, you know, you can change the diet, but you've got to also have a really open mind and a positive mind and have hope that, you know, while you're still here, there's things
yeah,
that you can do.
yeah. Yeah, and the thing is that even with exercise too, like people say, well, how can you hang for a minute and 47 seconds? Well, I started with 10 seconds.
That's
You know, I didn't just
right.
start with a minute. I started
Yes.
with 10 seconds. You know, somebody said,
Yeah.
do you want to hang off the bar? I think it was my grandson. Said, do you want to hang off the bar and see how long you can last? And I'm thinking, this will be interesting. So I tried it. And I did 10 seconds, 15 seconds or whatever. And then when my grandkids come over, they always want to do it. They want to hang on the bar to see if they can beat me, you know?
Love it.
But it just everything. Like I do planks and I do planks for a long time. I do planks for 7 minutes sometimes. Sometimes I do
What?
for
Yeah.
5 minutes and 11 seconds.
Up my
And
game.
so and it's the same thing. I
Yeah.
started with just, well, I think the first plank I ever did was 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I challenged a friend to do it with me over the phone. And she said, "I lasted 20 seconds." And I was still on the floor, on the phone and on the floor.
Talking to her.
Yeah, talking to her. And I managed to get in 2 minutes. And then I just kept increasing it. The thing with me is I can't stop. I don't want to stop. I just want to keep going and I want to keep doing. Like when I came here between chemotherapies, he said to me, I was bald, I still had my PICC line in, and he said to me, he said, well, because they canceled one of my chemos, I said to him, I said, because I almost died from one of the agents. So I said to him, I said, I want to get out of this hospital now. I'd been in hospital for a week. And I said, I'm telling you right now, if I get out of this hospital, I'm going to see if we have enough travel points and I'm going to book a car and I'm going to book a flight to Florida and we're going to go biking.
She made me promise her too. So
Yeah. So I did all that.
Yeah.
It was kind of an interesting travel thing because when we went to board the plane, they said we didn't have seats. So to make a long story short, a very nice American gate guy said to me, he said, look, he said, he was getting very upset because, you know, his wife is sick and now our seats are gone. And we don't know why. They never told us why.
No.
So he said to me, he said, well, you go and have a seat and as soon as I board all these people, I'll talk to you. So he called me over and I said, look, I said, I'm a cancer patient. I said, I know I have hair on my head, but it's not my hair. And I said to him, I said, I have to be in Florida by tonight. And I'd already been in the airport since I think 6 o'clock in the morning. And now it's like 11:30. And I said, I have to get there because I just have to get there. So he said, okay, I'll call you in 15 minutes. I'm just going to do some digging. So he calls me back and he said, you know, I've got you on a direct flight, 3 o'clock this afternoon, and I got you a pass for the lounge. You can go and have a rest. You can have something to eat. You can have something to drink. And then I get to our house in Florida and he calls me to see if I made it
yeah,
okay.
it's amazing.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
I was so
wow.
impressed.
Yeah.
I just, you know,
But
like,
that's not his job description. That's just because he's a lovely
no,
human
it's
being,
not.
right?
So John wrote a
Yeah.
really nice letter to
Wow.
American Airlines because that's the guy. He was
Mm.
from American Airlines. And I got here and the next day I wanted to go cycling. So I said to John, I said, well, look, he said, well, we should go to the back of the group because we cycle with this group every Tuesday and Thursday, and they all live around here. So they all knew me and they knew I had cancer. So he said, we'll go to the back of the group. And if you feel good and if you feel strong enough, we'll go to the front, because we were always at the front, riding really fast with the fastest people. And I said to him, I said, no, that's not what's going to happen. I want to go to the front of the group. And if I can't make it, I'll go to the back. But I am not going to the back of the group in the right off the bat. There's not going to happen. Well, we rode the 25 miles, I think it was, to the end of the
First
trail.
half, yeah.
First half of the trail. And we get to the end, and a guy that I had been riding with all these years, like we'd owned the house, I guess, 2 years by the time I was diagnosed. So he knew us because he had been riding with him. And we got to the end of the trail and he said, there is no way you have cancer. I am dying. And he was sweating.
All the other cyclists were gone.
Yeah,
long
yeah,
gone,
we
just-
had left him
What?
behind.
Yeah.
And I said, I pulled up my shirt and I said, here, do you think this is a fashion statement? This is a pick line. This is where the poison comes in. And he goes, well, you are strong, even though you're sick, because he said, I could hardly keep up with you guys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was
And
happy about that.
that's exactly it. So what you
Yeah.
did was, instead of lying down and sort of already putting little mental barriers in by saying, yeah, I'll play it safe, I'll be at the back. And, that I can imagine, John, that's basically how you've lived your life, Ariane, always pushing to that, no excuse, taking responsibility, just going
Yeah.
for it as much as you can. Because
Yeah,
why
I
wouldn't you?
can't deal with problems. I say that to John all the time. If I have a problem, I have to solve it. I can't live with problems. I have to have a solution to whatever it is that's happening. So, I just, the craziest story, but for anybody who has cancer, never give up, always stay positive, and always go shopping. So I
shopping?
was in, yeah, I was in the hospital and it was bad. I mean, they put me on the palliative floor. I didn't know how bad it was, but he said it was
They
pretty bad.
thought she was gonna die. They admitted her to die, basically.
Anyway, I wasn't dying
Yeah.
and I wasn't buying into that theory at all. And so I had been there from Monday, I think it was Monday you took me in.
Yeah.
And so now I've been there the whole week. And so I said to my oncologist, I said, Derek, I said, I need to get out of here. I really have to get out of here. I don't like it here. And people were dying every day. So it was not a really nice place to be. So he said to me, he said, well, I'll tell you what, I can't let you out. I can't let you go. He didn't want to really say it, how seriously ill I was, but he said, I really just can't let you go. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. I have to get out. So he said, I'll let you out for Sunday. And I had no pajamas. So I said to John, I said, well, I got to go to a store and buy. We have a store that's like TJ Maxx, it's like a discount type store. And I said to him, I have to buy pajamas because I've been wearing candy cane pajamas, like Christmas pajamas, because I bought them just as a joke. And I took them to the hospital because I started my first chemo January 4th. So I had just bought them for Christmas. So I go to the store, I bought a bunch of striped tops, I don't know how many, and a pair of pajamas. And when I came back to the hospital, I had to sign in and I had to say what the reason was that I left. And I said, retail therapy.
Yep. Well, they wouldn't argue, would they?
Yeah, I still have the pajamas. I don't wear them though, but I have.
I bet you do. I bet you do. Incredible, incredible. Have you read a book by an American lady called Dr. Gladys McCary?
No.
McCary or McGarry? I think I think it's Gary. She's 103 and she's written a book called The Well-Lived Life. And I think so much of what you're saying is exactly what she talks about, I suppose, her 5 or 6 kind of pillars of a well-lived life. And unfortunately, she doesn't talk about nutrition, but she talks about things like, spend your energy wildly. Like, what are you holding on to your energy for? Why are you holding back? I just wanted to put it there. I think you would really love it. There is so much of what you said that I've read in that book. And, I mean, she's 103 and she's still doing clinic. And she said, I have a 70-year-old sitting in front of me going, oh, I'm getting old. I'm so tired. And she's like, really? I'm 103, right? And she said, I don't,
Yeah, yeah,
I just have work to do. I'm not done. And that
yeah.
that drive to, like you said before, not be done, or, you're not finished. It's just there's things you don't want to slow down. And I agree with you. I think that keeps you going for
Well,
as
I'll
long as you
tell you
can.
what really keeps you going in a hurry is when you have a little granddaughter that's only a few months old.
Oh,
when you're diagnosed.
And I was so determined that because my two grandsons were my world,
mm.
when they were born, it was like Jane Fonda once said, when her first grandchild was born, it was like somebody split her heart wide open
Oh,
when she held them for the first time. And I was actually in the living room for my first little grandson. And yeah, and that was the best day of my life, seeing this little thing come into the world. So I have two grandsons. We have two grandsons and a little granddaughter. And they are so special. I mean, I had to live for them. I just had to live to see them grow up, and now they're 18, 15, and 12.
oh
So
wow.
yeah,
You
yeah,
might
the
have
oldest,
great ones soon. Great ones.
yeah. Well, the oldest one is starting university this year, so
Oh,
I think
wow.
he's got a ways to go before he decides to start a family. But
Yes.
that was my motivation. I was just so determined that it wasn't going to take me down. So.
That's great. That's
And so
great.
far, I've been very, very lucky, but changing my diet has made
Hmm.
all the difference in the
Yeah.
world in
Yeah.
terms of how I feel mentally. Because one question that John asked, I think it was was it Boca or San Diego? No, it was San Diego, because that's where the couple was
Oh,
from.
yeah, yeah, yes.
The question he asked, Maggie, was it Maggie?
Yeah,
Maggie and Brad.
yeah.
Yep.
He asked Maggie the question, when, because he was talking about me, but without really saying that. He said, when do you stop feeling afraid of a recurrence? And
Yeah.
you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. It's always there.
Mm.
And she said that, I
Yeah.
think she said something to that effect. Because every time you go for your oncology appointment,
Mhm.
you could be surprised because you're gonna get blood tests, you're gonna get x-rays, and so you can think right up until the day that you go that everything is fine.
Yeah.
But I was completely fine and then found out that I was full of cancer. Like, I mean, literally, like I went to my grandson's birthday, and by Monday morning and Saturday night, Monday morning, I was diagnosed, and it was an absolute emergency because couldn't take a breath. So,
Oh,
all the tumors were in my chest, so everything was obstructed, my airway.
Prostate major airway, 85%. So
Yeah.
I said, oh, never had this before. We need
So,
emergency.
so you just don't know. And then
Yeah.
unfortunately, it was all happening on the 17th of December, which is a really bad day to have an emergency, health emergency over Christmas, because everybody wants time off, right? But anyways, so you just have to, what I do is I try not to think about it until the day of.
mm.
And then I think about it until I'm done with my doctor, and then I go home and try to forget about it again.
Yeah. Until
But
you've got something concrete in front of you, I guess that, because
yeah,
I know
yeah,
it's the
because
thing.
yeah, you don't know. I mean,
No.
from one day to the next, I hear it all the time. People who are here today and gone tomorrow, and they have no signs of anything. So,
Mm, mm.
every day is I want to. My whole plan is to work and play to the max every single day that I wake up and open my eyes. That's my plan.
Sounds like a good plan.
Mhm.
What about you, John? Can I ask you about uh as an ophthalmologist, I'm guessing you kind of didn't really know much about diet through most of your career, and there was a turning point for you. Was it with your, with Ariane as well at the same time? You kind of uncovered both of this together.
Yes, it would be an understatement to say that I knew something about diet, nutrition, et cetera, because like every other allopathic model that we're taught in medical, and I taught med students at a medical school as well, but it's all about diagnosing And we're not bad at doing that. But then treatment is surgical, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, etc., pharmacotherapy, like big pharma, but nothing about why did the disease start? Nothing about root cause.
No.
Absolutely not. And when I was doing ophthalmology, I mean, Arienne, it's sort of different in the Canadian system where in the American system, people are trying to get you into the office. In Canada, there's such a, because of our universal healthcare, there's literally lined up at the door, and her job is just trying to keep me alive and take the sickest people because it was so busy.
Wow.
And I covered like 5 emerged departments, but I kept seeing, I see all the diabetics, and I'm injecting these drugs into their eyes, the macular degeneration. I'm doing all this thing, but I trained in biochemistry and physiology first before I went to medicine. And I understand all, it helps me understand all these things now, but I never could take the time to think about why is that occurring. And even if I had of, there's such objection by, the quote standard of care. You meet so and so, you got to give that drug. And if you don't, if you're not treating your patients the way the local within 2.5 hours of you are treating them, then you can lose your medical license. I mean, that's crazy. So it's not for the benefit of the patient, standard of
Mm,
care.
mm.
It's what is the average person doing in your community. They may know nothing about it, but that was pretty frustrating. And then when you spoke with Arienne about the keto foods, we tried to you try and eat what you were addicted to basically in the keto
Basically.
breads.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sort of like Weston A. Price, nutrition and physical degeneration. Those are the displacing foods. So you're not getting all those nutrients, minerals, vitamins that you should be in that whole food. So that was a huge thing. And I am much, much, much healthier as a result of being carnivore as well.
Mm.
And I'm the best shape of my life. I just can't believe it. And I used to be a competitive athlete, and I'd be putting down 1,100 grams of carbs a day easily. And I was not,
But he was not overweight at all.
No. So you're like
My
prof, kind of
husband
that, tall and lean
is a
and
tofi.
a
He's a
tofi, but
tofi.
but
it
I
was
but I
going
ended up,
somewhere, wasn't it? Like it has to have been like, you probably, hopefully have undone, the damage. But I look at that, it's like you can't always see the damage it's doing.
yeah, I was pre-diabetic fatty liver just
Mm,
before, and the only reason I found that out was when our son came down and 2018, 2019 started us down this rabbit hole. I thought, I'll test that. I thought, wow, oh my gosh.
yeah. Yeah. So how do you
But
make peace with that? I love talking about this because,
yeah,
once we've seen the light, we want everyone else to see the light. But of course,
yep,
people can only see what they see when they're ready to see it. And of course,
yep.
you yourself, I mean, you only saw it when you were ready to see it, or it was presented in a way to you that you could really look at it. I think that's part of the human experience. It's just kind of how we work. And I always try and, keep perspective and remember that it took me years to really understand it. And I didn't want to see when I first was shown. And, that's just kind of how it is. But there's always a bit of like I look at my 3 older kids who were fed on the standard diet when they were born because I didn't know, they went to rice cereal and a lot of packaged foods. And I thought I was doing the right thing. And then, of course, I learned something different. And I feel like, you do have to make an element of peace that you did the best you can with what you knew. But, I still think it's not a regret. It's just like a sadness that, why,
That's right.
yeah. Is that what it is?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do the same thing. I used to make smoothies for John. with oatmeal and all kinds of fruit and everything, and I would freeze it. And then he would take it to the operating room, and he would live on that. He would literally was drinking smoothies every single day, all day long.
Yeah.
And I feel sad towards my sons because they're 53 and 50, and I almost feel badly about the way that I fed them, because I fed them the stuff that we were told to feed them. I mean, now I know so much more. But you're right about the fact that people don't want to hear it.
No.
And so I start whenever somebody, because I have people walking up to me and saying, "Oh, what are you doing? You look great," and I'll tell them, and it's like instant back off.
Yep.
Instant back off. And now I just start by saying, well, you know what? I can tell you what I'm doing, but you're not going to want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, it's probably okay. Like it just depends on, I know I'm telling you this because it works for me. I'm not advocating that it will work for everyone.
Yeah.
But there are so many people around me right now. See, you get to an age where, like in the community that we live in, so many of the people around me are starting with dementia. It's very sad to watch it, because after reading Georgia's book and Chris Palmer's, there's so much that can be done without pharma that could possibly help so many people, and it's so sad. I just talked to somebody today who told me her son was in the hospital because he has schizophrenia. And I said, I have a book that I want you to read. And I gave her my book Georgia Eats book. We got 3 copies.
Yeah.
And I gave one friend one, and this other girl, I just gave it to her today. And I said, she said, well, I'm not sure if he's going to read this book. And I said, no. I'm not giving you this book for him to read it. I'm giving you this book for you to read it. You get the information out of the book, and then you can maybe suggest something, maybe you can make a change somewhere along the line.
But I love how you say it, and you said it at the start of our conversation too. You're very clear that this is what works for me. This is how I'm doing it. And actually, what you're doing is you're actually gifting people with that space to decide whether there is something for it. And that's where I think, we have to be careful when we are giving the messages, because we can get very dogmatic and kind of opinionated, and this is the way it has to be done. And I do think that's where we turn people away, and they're kind of like, well, I'm just not going to look there because you're being so dogmatic about it, and I'm not interested. But if we say it in a way,
you get that anyway, by the way, you get that anyway, even if you say it the way that I say it.
I know, but at least I think for those that might be at that time, which we can never know, right?
When that is. Pain.
Yep.
I'll tell you something. I just want to tell you this because it's so funny. When we were vegetarian, my friends would say, I'm going to have you over for dinner, but I don't know what you eat. And I said, well, when you cook dinner, what do you cook? And I said, well, I cook potatoes, and I cook vegetables, and I cook, pork or beef or chicken or whatever. And I said, well, there's only one item that I don't eat, and that's the meat. So what's the problem? Throw in an extra potato. Now they're saying, I don't know how to have you for dinner because you don't know what you eat. I said, well, it should be a lot easier. I said, I only eat one thing, meat. Are you going to have any?
That's funny.
If you are, I'll just have that. Cook more of that.
Oh, it's funny. It's funny. It's so true. It's so true. I resonate with that as well. And I think my personal story is, when we first come into, I try and tell coaches that I work with, it's like, I know you want to shout it from the mountaintops. And I'm not saying don't do that. And I think we do need to do that, but you need to do it in a gentle way, and understand that everyone is on their journey. And until you cannot make someone open their eyes unless they're ready. But when they are ready, if you've got the book or the video or some non-threatening way that you can say, hey, just in your own time, maybe watch this. Then one of the things I love saying is, there just might be something interesting in this for you. I don't know, maybe. And they're kind of curious enough if they're ready to look at it. And
it's interesting because you just nailed it on something that just happened to me. I was at a friend's house, and she told me that she has a friend whose grandchild is got really behavioral problems and
Right.
obviously is having some mental issues. And just the day that she told me about that, I watched a YouTube video with Georgia Ede, 17 and a half minutes. Really one of the best ones that I've watched. I watched a lot of her stuff. And it was just describing how a change in diet can calm a child down and can deal with ADHD and all this sort of stuff. And that one thing leads to another, to another, to another. So it was so clear and so easy to understand that I texted my friend and I said, you know, maybe you can contact your friend back in Canada and tell her that to watch this video. It's just 17 and a half minutes, and maybe it can help her grandson. You know, maybe there's something there that can, you know, trigger something for him, for help for him.
Yeah.
And the answer was, well, we watched some of her videos and they're very interesting and compelling. I'm not sure how to take that.
Okay.
That's okay.
That's
I
okay.
don't know,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
you
good.
know, because is
Being
that
curious.
saying to me, yeah, is that saying, well, great, but we're not interested, you know, or I don't think she'd be interested, like maybe she's deciding for someone else. My feeling is 17 minutes out of your life, and if I can do anything that takes 17 minutes to help my grandchild, I would sit for 17 hours. So, you know, but
I know, but then that's true, because then it gets complicated though too sometimes, because the mother of the child doesn't necessarily listen to the mother, you know, the grandmother. So you know,
yes, you
Right.
got that right. You've got that right.
so
Yeah.
you know, she may be, oh yes, I get it, but you know, maybe I don't know if my daughter will, or my son, or you know, and how do I
Yeah.
approach that? See, so many
Yeah.
different layers, and I think you
Yeah,
know,
it is.
it's
It
but
is.
we
And
can't
it's
stop
true
trying.
because as a grandmother, it's very different.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
you can't live your grandchildren's lives. Their parents have to do that. But when you have a child that is in trouble,
I know.
you know.
I know. And it's rampant. And you know, I get, you know, sometimes just think, "Oh, you know, are we making a difference?" And I don't know, but you know, diet just does not come into the discussion.
Yeah, you
It's
know why, don't you? It's because there's no money in it.
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
No
When you were
money.
talking about the carnivore diet, it's like if
Yes.
pharmacology could pack a pill, oh, imagine, you know, they got to get into farming, like meat, and then we'd probably be that, you know, everyone would be happy. But of course they don't. It's the enemy, and yeah, they can't make money off it, and you can't make money off healthy people. Unfortunately, it fuels an economy, doesn't it? So we're down this path.
Yeah, I mean, there's money in disease. There's no money in
No,
cure, and no
no,
money in prevention either.
no.
There was in Clearwater, because we went to see the Metabolic Health Symposium. We went there too, at the end of January, and there was a young man there who was stage 4 cancer,
Yeah.
and he absolutely moved me. He spoke, and I mean, he was talking about his journey in the healthcare system in the United States, and it was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And Nasha Winters stood up and did a speech after he spoke, and somebody was kind of putting him down almost, and she came out in his defense, and she I think she got a standing ovation. I can't be sure. One of them did. Either he did or she did, or they both
They
did.
both did, yeah.
Just unbelievable. It was that was just great.
Yeah. Well, there are, you know, some incredible people like Nasha and yourselves, and of course the work Nutrition Network do, and Prof Noakes, and you know, that started because people got brave and had the courage to stand up and say, hey, I've changed what I believe and I now see it differently. And I think, you know, we just have to keep doing that, you know, everyone that does, you know, change and see it differently, we can share. I'd love you to I guess wrap it up for me with each of you, what is a takeaway message you would like to give? But I also want to just say, can you please send me that link to that Georgia Ede one? Because I would love to put it down below, because I'm sure there'll be people listening that Oh, I'd like to see which one, because she's got
Yeah,
some
you can find
incredible
out.
ones.
Yeah, I'll find
Yeah,
it. I'll
don't
find
If
it.
find
you
it.
don't mind, that would be great. But yeah, I mean, what's your take home messages?
Yeah, because some of her videos that I've watched are well into an hour or longer, but
Yeah,
this one is just 17 and a half minutes. And
yeah.
that was the last one I watched. So it's very recent.
Okay,
And it was very comprehensive. It was really, really good.
great.
She's, by the way, a super nice person.
So what's your
She's
take home?
super nice.
My take-home message is that people need to open their minds to the possibility of something better than drugs. I absolutely believe that sugar is a legal drug. And like we need to realize that what the food industry is doing to us is not to our benefit. And, the fact that it takes work to make a meal from scratch, but you just have to have a focus on being healthy. And we only eat in we fast for 16 hours. So we eat in a 6-hour window. And if you go carnivore, you're never going to be hungry. You're just not going to be hungry. And you can go from 5 o'clock in the afternoon until the next day at 12 or 1 and not ever feel that you're hungry. I don't. I never thought that would happen to me. I just don't feel hungry. Especially if I'm out riding or doing anything busy, I just don't feel hungry at all. So, and all you have to do is try. No one is like, I'm not telling anybody that they have to do anything. Ketogenic, paleo, carnivore, doesn't matter. Just if you have a problem and you want to solve it and you want to see if you can do better, all you have to do is do 30 days. I only did 5 days and I felt fantastic. So, I mean, do it for a month, do it for 30 days. What's 30 days out of your life, you know? And then if you don't have the result that you want, just go back to what you used to do.
You've lost nothing, really. You've just gained an experience and understanding, and chances are you're probably going to feel a bit better too.
Yeah, yeah.
John?
And for myself, if I look at, yes, I agree that ultra processed food, there's some good data now in the last year showing that it can be addictive. I don't necessarily say ultra processed food, so I prefer people get satiety. So, and whatever food that gives you the most satiety of real whole food, it's going to be the most nutrient dense, preferably animal based, because those nutrients are much more available. If you are on the vegan side, that's okay, but you have to be a lot more careful and you have to do a lot of supplementation. So I'm not saying one way or the other, but it's easier if you're animal based, much easier if you go towards the carnivore part of it. Strength, doing some kind of strength training, whatever exercise you can do, even if it's walking 3 or 4 steps to start, that's the one that's right for you. The best exercise is the one that you enjoy doing, for sure. And then stress is it's so hard to change that, but if you can do it and if you can alter your job somehow, it's super stressful. That's a much more difficult one. Then your sleeping will improve.
Yeah.
If you get outside in the sunshine has way more benefit than just vitamin D. They've shown lots of studies to support that as well. Spirituality, whatever that means to you, socialization is so powerful. So all these blue zones, it's because of what they do as a community together and what they're not eating. So it's the seed oils and sugars. When you look at the food, we call it processed, ultra processed, but when you look at that, those are the nutrient deficient, pro-oxidative, pro-inflammatory, toxic materials that we shouldn't be consuming. So just eat the real food, local market if you can. And surprisingly, if you eat a whole food diet, whatever your choice happens to be, plant or more towards the animal side, you're going to save a lot of money on medication that you might be currently taking. And if you want to, and Georgia E., Chris Palmer, your mind, it's that bidirectionality. So if you have, your mental health is not good, your chance of diabetes can be 2 or 3-fold higher.
Yeah.
If you're schizophrenic, it could be, and you live to 6, it could be 30-fold higher chance of heart disease. So it goes both ways because it does affect the mitochondria everywhere in your body.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's your brain, your muscles, wherever they are. It's all about mitochondrial health, and you can do that best by those things that we talked about.
Yeah. I love
Does
that.
that make sense?
It does make total sense. And I think, the biggest thing I think, from what you've both said is that, you're not going to necessarily do a 2-minute plank today. It's okay to take small steps, and,
Absolutely.
the mind will compare, well, I'm not doing that, so what's the point? But there is point, and you can start slowly. And I see a lot of people so overwhelmed with, oh, there's just so much, and, life is just overwhelming me. And I think you can really sort of let go of a lot of that by just allowing yourself to focus on one thing, even if it's just that first bit of food you put in your mouth, or, changing your ratios around a little bit to include more protein, or just start, because then, you'll see the next step when, you're ready to take the next step. I think it's the saddest part is when people don't even start because they think it's hard. And yeah, it is hard, but you can do it one step at a time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Start with
And
your push-ups from your knees if you
yeah,
can't do them from the toe.
well,
It's
that's
all
pretty much me.
This is, we started doing push-ups quite a long time ago, a number of years ago. And I've been trying to catch him all along. Like he does 150, I'm up to 120.
She's 120.
Straight.
Yeah, straight legs,
No.
military push-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do 120 and he does 150. And I've been trying to do 125. And by the time I'm finished by 120th, I say, not gonna happen today.
Well, it'll probably happen in your 80s. You're just waiting for like a goal for you.
I
What
think
an
so.
inspiration. It's been so lovely to talk to you. I could talk to you both all day. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. And of course, any contact details that you have, if people want to send you an email or reach out to you, I'm sure you'll pass that on to me. And keep going. And I can't wait to keep watching, and I will keep everything crossed. I can get to Boca, I should say. It's not Boca next year in January. Wouldn't it be amazing to see you
That'd be
again?
great.
Yeah, that would be lovely if you could be there,
Yeah.
because that would be like
The best.
old time. I mean, we were looking, there's a picture on Instagram with you and Tia.
Tia.
No,
Tia Reid.
Tracey,
Yep.
Tia Reid, and John and I, and it was just so nice. And that was such a nice meeting. We had
It was
such a good,
beautiful. Oh,
yeah,
best time.
really
I'll never
was.
forget it. I'll never forget it. Thank you very,
Yeah.
very, very much.
Thank you.
Well, if you can come to Boca, it'd be awesome. We're gonna be there.
And anybody else listening, come.